Ever wondered how a young, sprawling nation like the United States transformed from a collection of separate regions into an economic powerhouse? It wasn't by accident. A grand plan, a bold vision, was set in motion in the early 19th century, designed to weave the country together like never before. This is the story of the American system, the ambitious economic blueprint that aimed to unite North, South, and West. At the heart of this vision was a man named Henry Clay, a charismatic statesman from Kentucky. They called him the Great Compromiser, and his biggest idea was to create a self-sufficient, prosperous America where every region played a vital role. He saw a future where the industrial North, the agricultural South, and the developing West weren't rivals, but partners in a shared economic destiny. So, what was this American system? It was built on three core pillars. First, a protective tariff. This was a tax on imported goods. The idea was simple: make foreign products more expensive so that Americans would buy goods made right here at home. This would protect and encourage the booming new factories in the Northeast, creating jobs and fostering innovation. Think of it as a Buy American campaign, 19th century style. The second pillar was a national bank, specifically the Second Bank of the United States. In an era of unstable local currencies, a single, reliable national bank was crucial. It would provide a stable currency, regulate the nation's credit, and ensure that whether you were a merchant in Boston or a farmer in Ohio, the money you held was sound. This financial stability was the grease in the wheels of commerce, making it easier for businesses to grow and for trade to flow smoothly across state lines. And that brings us to the third, and perhaps most visible, pillar: internal improvements. This meant federal funding for infrastructure projects. We're talking roads, canals, and later, railroads. Imagine trying to ship cotton from a southern plantation to a northern textile mill, or moving crops from the western frontier to East Coast cities, using little more than dirt tracks and winding rivers. It was slow, expensive, and unreliable. Henry Clay argued that a modern economy needed modern transportation. The federal government, he believed, should invest in building these arteries of commerce. The most famous example was the National Road, a paved highway stretching from Maryland all the way to Illinois, opening up the West to settlement and trade. Then came the canals, like the legendary Erie Canal in New York, which connected the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean, drastically cutting shipping costs and travel times. These projects weren't just about moving goods. They were about connecting people and ideas, physically stitching the nation together. How did these three pillars work together? It was a beautifully designed cycle. The revenue collected from the protective tariffs would be used to fund the internal improvements, the roads and canals. These new transportation routes would then allow the different regions to trade with each other more easily. The industrial North, protected by the tariff, would produce manufactured goods like textiles, tools, and furniture. The agricultural South would supply the North's factories with raw materials, especially cotton. And the burgeoning West would feed the growing nation with its abundance of grain and livestock. In Clay's vision, goods would flow freely. Southern cotton to northern mills, northern factory goods to southern and western farms, and western food to the industrial cities of the East. Everyone wins. It was a plan for national synergy, turning regional strengths into a unified economic force. This system played a huge role in fueling the first American Industrial Revolution. As northern factories sprang up, they created a massive demand for raw materials and a new urban workforce that needed to be fed. The American system provided the framework to meet these demands. It helped shift the U.S. economy from one based almost entirely on agriculture and foreign trade to one that was increasingly industrial and self-sufficient. From fields to factories, the nation was transforming. New cities grew along transportation routes. A new class of industrial workers emerged. The West, once a distant frontier, became more accessible and integrated into the national economy. This period saw an explosion of economic growth and innovation, laying the foundation for America to become the industrial giant of the 20th century. However, the American system wasn't without its controversies. This is where the story gets complicated. The South, in particular, grew to resent the protective tariff. Their economy was based on exporting agricultural goods, like cotton, to Europe and importing manufactured goods. The tariff raised the price of the goods they bought but didn't seem to offer them much direct benefit, as most of the factories were in the North. Southern leaders, like John C. Calhoun, argued that the tariff unfairly benefited one region at the expense of another. They called it the Tariff of Abominations. This disagreement over the tariff became a major source of sectional tension. It raised deep constitutional questions. Did the federal government have the right to pass laws that seemed to favor one part of the country over another? This debate over states' rights versus federal power would simmer for decades, eventually boiling over into the Civil War. The national bank was also a political battleground. President Andrew Jackson, a fierce opponent of Henry Clay, saw the bank as an institution of elite, wealthy interests that held too much power over the common man. His war against the bank led to its demise in the 1830s, creating financial instability. Debates over internal improvements also raged, with some arguing that the federal government shouldn't be involved in local projects. Despite the political battles and its eventual breakdown, the legacy of the American system is undeniable. It was a visionary attempt to think of the United States as a single integrated economic unit. It spurred industrialization, connected the country, and fostered a sense of national economic identity. While Henry Clay's dream of perfect regional harmony was never fully realized, his ideas shaped American economic policy for decades. The core principles investing in infrastructure, managing national currency, and debating the role of trade policy are issues we still grapple with today. The forgotten legacy of Henry Clay and the American system is a powerful reminder that national prosperity is often the result of deliberate design and bold vision. It's a tale of how roads, banks, and factories helped forge a nation. It shows us that the journey from a loose confederation of states to a continental economic superpower was a project, a system, built one road, one canal, and one idea at a time. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this dive into American history interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the ideas that shaped our world. Let me know in the comments what you think about the American system. We'll see you in the next video.